Discover the incredible hidden truths of the Roman Empire, 10 transformative moments exposed. The rain hammered against the roof of Sarah Thompson's modest home as she sifted through the remnants of her father's life. Dust danced in the grim light from the attic window, swirling around like the chaotic thoughts in her mind. At 38, she stood at an intersection of grief and uncertainty. The world spinning outside felt distant, but inside, she was trapped in the suffocating weight of familial obligations and a career that had become a monotonous cycle of unfulfilled dreams. As she grabbed a rusted box buried beneath old newspapers, a glimmer caught her eye. Heart racing, Sarah pried it open to reveal a pair of ancient Roman coins, one inscribed with cryptic markings that beckoned to her with a haunting familiarity. Her pulse quickened. Could these coins be a link to her family's past? The stories of power and betrayal within the corridors of the Roman Empire whispered promises of significance, something she desperately craved. Clutching the coin tightly, she felt a spark, a thread connecting her to an illustrious legacy as she wrestled with the mundane reality of her teaching job, where her sacrifices seemed invisible, and her voice was muffled under layers of bureaucracy. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation bubbled within her as she tried to articulate her findings to her disinterested students. They yawned, their eyes glazed over as she connected the injustices of ancient Rome to contemporary struggles. In moments of silence, doubt crept in, coiling tightly around her resolve. How could she convince them that history mattered when she herself felt trapped in a cage of resignation? Some colleagues openly questioned her integrity, dismissing her research as trivial. Each chuckle echoed the ridicule of her childhood bullying, feelings she buried deep resurfaced. The coins became both a symbol of her potential and a reminder of her isolation. On presentation day, the atmosphere was thick with expectation and her own self-doubt. As Sarah stepped onto the stage, after days of contemplating her lineage and its weight upon her shoulders, she felt the familiar lump of anxiety rise in her throat. Could she transform her ancestors' battle into a rallying cry for her students to confront their own challenges? What if they did not listen, did not believe her? Her heart thudded as she clutched the podium, her dreams and legacy hung by a thread. Suddenly, the microphone fizzled out, plunging the auditorium into a deafening silence, amplifying her humiliation. The breaths of her students felt like the walls closing in. She was not only fighting for a legacy but for her identity, her very existence in a world that felt so dismissive. As she stood frozen, the echoes of her ancestors' struggles surged within her, igniting both hope and despair. This moment could break her or propel her into the realization that her narrative mattered. Would she reclaim her voice, her history, or would this be the final failure that marked her tale? Panic surged through Sarah as the weight of silence pressed against her. The failure of the microphone was a metaphor, amplifying her intrinsic fears. She could see disinterest flickering in her students' eyes, she felt like a puppet caught between the strings of expectation and her growing anxiety. The rusted coin in her pocket burned against her skin, a tangible representation of her lingering ancestry but also a reminder of the expectations she felt she could not meet. Taking a deep breath, Sarah steeled herself against that wave of uncertainty. What did she have to lose? In this moment, she held more than her father's artifacts, she carried the stories woven into their histories. She remembered her father's passionate tales of the Roman Empire, each one a thread in the tapestry of her own life. Shifting her stance, she let the weight of her past anchor her in the present. In quiet defiance to the silence around her, Sarah spoke. "I want to tell you about this coin," she said, drawing it from her pocket. "It belonged to my ancestor, a woman who lived through the rise and fall of empires. Can you imagine the strength it took to survive such turmoil?" Her voice grew more confident, each word gathering momentum as she recounted the injustices that echoed down through the ages. Soon, she saw a flicker of interest among her students. Their curiosity ignited like sparks in the darkness. Sarah poured out the tale of her ancestor, connecting it to resilience against the backdrop of political machinations, to the personal struggles mirrored in their lives today. She wove their contemporary challenges into the fabric of her narrative, and slowly, the students leaned forward, their engagement palpable. As she spoke, something shifted within Sarah. She wasn't just teaching history, she was living it. Her struggle to connect was born from a place of genuine passion, fueled by the desire to inspire. Each connection she drew between past and present was an act of reclaiming not only her voice but her purpose. The students were not only their own history but the architects of their futures. The presentation ended, and applause echoed through the auditorium, a thunderous appreciation that reverberated deep within her. What began as a debilitating fear had transformed into an exhilarating confirmation of her worth. But as the applause faded, doubts simmered beneath the surface. Was this moment just a fluke? Could she sustain this newfound confidence, or was her journey towards personal fulfillment still an uphill battle? Later, as Sarah gathered her notes, she noticed a group of students lingering. One approached her, eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Miss Thompson, can you help me research my family history?" Another chimed in, "I think there's a lot we can learn from this. Can we explore more?" A smile broke across her face, hope and a flicker of possibility ignited. Perhaps she could lead them on a journey, not only to discover their own histories but to reclaim their narratives as agents of change. The potential felt electrifying, but alongside this hope crept a shadow of fear. What if she couldn't maintain this momentum? What if she faltered when it mattered most? The paths were many, choices lay before her, and she realized she stood on the precipice of something profound. The ancient coins were more than a relic of the past, they were keys to unlocking her future. The time had come to act, to confront the personal and professional dilemmas that had bound her for so long. Determined, she whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." What lay ahead was uncertain, but the next step was clear. She would not shy away from her history, she would dive deeper into her family's legacy, into the complexities of teaching, and into an exploration of herself. But another thought stirred restlessly in her mind. As she gazed out the window, she felt the pull of the unknown ahead. The shadow of unresolved questions loomed, tempting her. What other truths lay buried in her family history, waiting to change her trajectory forever? The moment of discovery beckoned, and she was ready to seize it. As daylight filtered through her classroom window the next morning, Sarah sat at her desk, her fingers trembling over her notes. The echoes of last night's applause lingered in her mind, fueling a mix of excitement and a deep-set apprehension. Had she genuinely tapped into something meaningful? Or was this merely a fleeting illusion, a light in the fog that would vanish upon closer inspection? Pushing the doubts away, she opened her laptop and began searching for resources on her ancestry. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, navigating through archives and historical databases. The air vibrated with possibility, the thrill of discovery beckoning her to delve deeper. Each page revealed tiny fragments of her history, cultural contexts that interlinked with her family's legacy and their connection to the Roman Empire. As she pieced together snippets of information about her ancestor, Sarah's mind oscillated between the past and the present. She realized that her family's experiences mirrored the tumultuous history of empire's struggles, victories, and sweeping changes. It wasn't just academic for her anymore, it felt like a personal quest. She was not merely a teacher presenting facts, she was a storyteller, a curator of human experience. That afternoon, she faced her students again. The room was charged with youthful energy as they gathered to learn more about their histories, inspired by the last session. She felt an electric connection to them, a sense of shared purpose. "Today," she announced, "we're embarking on an adventure to uncover our family stories together." With each student sharing fragments of their lineage, the room pulsated with curiosity. Questions flowed as easily as laughter, and Sarah felt the walls of her self-doubt begin to crumble. She encouraged each inquiry, guiding them expertly as they navigated through the complexities of their identities, but beneath the vibrant surface, a nagging doubt persisted. How much of her enthusiasm was genuine? Would these newfound connections withstand the test of time? And what if she faltered as their guide in this exploration? That evening, she found herself grappling with the weight of responsibility. She paced her apartment, rehearsing what she might reveal to her students in their next session. It was one thing to learn about her heritage, it was another to share it with others. The potential of exposing her vulnerability took on a visceral edge, a daunting confrontation with her fears and uncertainties. Engaging in self-reflection, she recognized a visceral urge within her, a yearning to be more than just a voice in the classroom. She felt a compelling need to open herself to the history she was excavating. And so, she resolved to share not just her ancestor's story but her own struggles, hopes, and fears as well. As the clock ticked towards the next day, an unshakable conviction took root. This journey was not just about uncovering the past, it was about forging connections, redefining her identity, and inspiring her students to do the same. The morning of the next class, dread mingled with excitement within her. She walked into the classroom, clutching the ancient coin that had become a symbol of her metamorphosis. It was time to confront her fears head-on, to reveal both her legacy and her own narrative. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, a sudden commotion erupted from the back of the room. A student raised her hand, eyes wide with revelation. "Miss Thompson, I found something incredible in my family history. You won't believe it." The urgent energy rippled through the room, igniting Sarah's curiosity once more. What truths awaited her next? She felt the thrill of unpredictability as she leaned into the moment, ready to embrace whatever followed. The wave of excitement from her student's revelation crashed over Sarah like a sudden tide, pulling her further into an ocean of inquiry and possibility. "What did you find?" she prompted, her curiosity swirling with anticipation, eager to delve into the unknown depths of personal history. The student, Rena, stood up with fervor, clutching a stack of papers as if they were treasures unearthed from the depths of time. "My family is connected to a famous leader who fought against Roman expansion," Rena declared, her voice a blend of pride and disbelief. The room fell silent, captivated by her revelation. Sarah could feel the dynamics shifting, the energy sparking not just within Rena, but radiating outward to every student present. They leaned in, intrigue etching their expressions. As Rena detailed the accounts she had uncovered, Sarah's thoughts drifted inward. She felt a flicker of recognition in Rena's discovery, a mirror to her own journey, the connection between the past and the present unfolding like the very lines on a map of history. Suddenly, her own childhood stories, once tangled in doubt, coalesced into a clearer narrative, vivid and alive. What if my ancestry holds secrets that can inspire my students? She mused quietly, encouraged by Rena's boldness. Sarah made a decision that sent a pulse of urgency through her. "Let's create a family history presentation," she exclaimed, the idea bubbling to the forefront of her mind. "We'll each share one significant story or fact about our lineage. Let's explore how our pasts shape our futures." As the students embraced the assignment, her mind wandered back to the coin she had been holding onto tightly. That small relic connected her to generations long gone, yet she had scarcely acknowledged its implications. What stories lay behind it? Feeling a surge of determination, she would not shy away from sharing her own narrative. She wanted to demonstrate that vulnerability could transform fear into strength. In the days that followed, Sarah immersed herself in her own family history with renewed vigor. Each night, she scoured the archives, piecing together fragments like a jigsaw puzzle. With every new detail, her great-grandmother's resilience during economic turmoil, her grandfather's struggles as an immigrant, she felt layers of her identity unfolding. It was an empowering act. She was reclaiming her story, and in turn, finding ways to connect it to her students' explorations. When the day arrived for presentations, excitement wove through the classroom like electricity. As her students shared their stories, eyes gleaming with discovery, she felt a kinship developing, a bond bridging generations. Relief washed over her when they celebrated their histories, affirming that her vulnerabilities were not weaknesses but threads woven into a rich fabric of shared experience. Yet, just when she thought the class was reaching a harmonious crescendo, doubt flashed through her mind. What if I haven't uncovered enough? What if my struggles are deemed insignificant? It felt like stepping onto a tightrope, her heart racing with the fear of falling beyond the supportive circle she had cultivated. Rena's passion reignited those doubts, but it also ignited a fire deep within Sarah. She realized that her history wasn't solely about triumphs but also about the lessons woven through her failures and fears. Maybe that's where the true connection lies, she reflected, planning what she would share. As the final student wrapped up their presentation, a reverberating silence filled the air. Sarah prepared to step forward, ready to give a piece of herself to her students. But just as she opened her mouth, the school principal peeked her head through the classroom door, her demeanor unusually serious. "Sarah, can we talk?" Instantly, a jolt of tension sparked within Sarah. What awaited her outside the classroom? Would it unravel the sense of purpose she had crafted with her students? She felt caught between two worlds, the one where she was forging connections with her class and the unknown that beckoned beyond the threshold. With her heart already racing, Sarah stepped forward, uncertain yet determined to embrace whatever lay ahead. What unforeseen challenges awaited her, and how would they shape her evolving path? The moment of truth was just beginning to unfold. As Sarah crossed the threshold, the classroom faded behind her, replaced by the stark fluorescent lights of the hallway. The weight of the principal's invitation loomed heavily upon her, like an anchor pulling her down. The air felt charged with unspoken questions, igniting her anxiety and igniting her determination simultaneously. What could possibly be so urgent? Principal Morgan's expression was somber, yet it contained an undercurrent of urgency that set Sarah's mind racing. "There's been some feedback about your recent assignment," she began, her tone measured, but eyes sharp with expectation. "Feedback?" Sarah echoed, a mixture of dread and curiosity swirling inside her. "Yes. A few parents have expressed concern that the Family History Project encourages students to delve too deeply into personal matters. They fear it could unearth trauma or sensitive topics they might not be ready to discuss." A twinge of frustration coursed through Sarah, quickening her pulse. Her vision flipped between the supportive environment she had cultivated and a defensive stance for her students' growth. But that's the power of this project. It's about connection and understanding our varied backgrounds. "Absolutely, and I agree," Principal Morgan interjected, her hands resting on her hips, grounding the conversation. "But you know how delicate these discussions can be. It's a reflection of the times we're in." Reality hit Sarah like a cold wave. Her intentions had always been to foster curiosity and resilience, not to invite discomfort or anxiety. Anguish mixed with determination as she felt her mission slipping through her fingers. "What do you want me to do?" The question escaped her, raw and unfiltered. "We're not shutting it down, but I think it's essential to have a deeper discussion about its direction," the principal replied. "We should hold an informational meeting with interested parents next week, ensuring that we address their concerns constructively." Steeling herself, Sarah nodded slowly. This was not a setback, it was an opportunity to demonstrate the value of her assignment. It would be a chance to reframe her students' journeys as significant and meaningful, not merely as fodder for worry. "Okay," Sarah began, her voice steadied with purpose, "but I need to ensure students feel safe and supported. Can we incorporate strategies for sensitive sharing?" "Of course. I think bringing in a counselor as a resource during the presentations might be beneficial," Principal Morgan replied, her demeanor easing. Nodding in agreement, Sarah's mind raced with strategic possibilities. She could organize a workshop on emotional resilience, allowing students to explore their narratives while equipped with tools for self-reflection. How about if I prep the students with coping strategies before the presentations? The thought felt right, a bridge between her passion and the controversial nature of the assignment. Feeling a renewed sense of purpose, she envisioned the faces of her students, their eyes glinting with the pride of heritage and discovery. They deserved the chance to share their histories. Tucked within those narratives were lessons not only about the past but about facing their futures. "Let's set up a meeting for the end of the week," Sarah suggested, her voice lifting with newfound enthusiasm. "I want to engage parents in conversations around personal growth and understanding our history." When class resumed, the energy had shifted. Trembling excitement mixed with a hint of trepidation among her students as they sensed their teacher's determination. Today, should we talk about how we navigate our stories? Sarah ventured, ready to channel her revelations into a constructive dialogue. As the students shared not only their excitement but their worries, Sarah felt a flicker of apprehension turn to clarity. What if the very act of sharing these stories is what prepares us to face the world outside? She pondered aloud, fueling the discourse on resilience with sincerity. However, just as confidence settled in, a small voice broke through the ambience. But what if our stories are too dark? What if our parents disagree with us sharing them? Sarah's heart constricted. Such straightforward honesty struck at the core of her mission. These questions weren't obstacles, they demanded deeper exploration. Turning to face the class, Sarah recognized that vulnerability was a double-edged sword, often threatening but necessary for growth. What if our stories can be a source of strength? She countered, her voice steady. Can we focus on how those hardships shaped us instead of just dwelling on the pain they may have caused? As she spoke, Sarah felt the pressure of her own upcoming presentation looming closer. Would she stand before them with her own revelations, her own fears? Would it resonate as a foundation for courage, or would it expose her vulnerability? And as curiosity and concern woven together, a deeper realization struck her: the true challenge would not only be presenting her history, but coming to terms with it herself. The road ahead twisted with uncertainty. What truths awaited her in the uncharted territory of her own story? And how would she transform that narrative into one of hope and resilience for her students? The revelation felt as overwhelming as the uncertainty and growing tension wrapped around her heart. It was evident that the moment of truth in her own journey was just around the corner. As Sarah prepared for the parents' meeting, she found herself juggling emotions, anxiety, responsibility, and a fierce determination to advocate for her students. With each passing day, the importance of the upcoming presentation grew heavier on her shoulders. She envisioned her students in the audience. Their shifting faces encapsulated a mixture of hope and fear that mirrored her own internal struggle. Sitting at her desk, she flipped through her own family history notes, tracing her fingers over handwritten pages. The stories reflected pain and strength, but the vulnerability she needed to share felt too raw. What if she stumbled? What if her own history exposed too much? The classroom wall clock ticked ominously, each second pulling her closer to the moment of truth. She envisioned standing there, bearing her heart and soul. The idea both thrilled and terrified her. Was it necessary to reveal such personal wounds? She asked herself. Attempting to strategize her narrative, she drafted possible talking points. However, recurring doubts dimmed her motivation. In her mind, she flashed back to the classroom discussions about fear and vulnerability. But what if my story is too dark? She thought, echoing one of her students' concerns. Instead of retreating into self-doubt, Sarah made a conscious choice. She would frame her story as a journey of transformation, a mosaic of experiences that had shaped her resilience. She scribbled down key points, moments of doubt, instances of support from her ancestors, an uplifting transition that would promote courage among students and parents alike. To find clarity, Sarah turned to her students for encouragement. In an unguarded moment, she gathered them in a circle. What if we could share our fears and triumphs together, as a way to prepare for what's next? She proposed, heart racing at the thought of openly discussing her vulnerabilities with them. As they shared, she felt their weight lift off her shoulders. They were eager to engage, compassionate yet honest, reminding her through their own reflections that a powerful narrative wasn't just about resolution but the journey itself. Joy surged through her as ideas flowed. It wasn't about perfect presentation, it was about authenticity. That evening, Sarah crafted a speech centered around her experiences while incorporating her students' voices. She envisioned presenting a collage of narratives, each piece integral to the whole, yet carrying its own weight. The next day, while practicing in front of the mirror, she challenged her reflection. "You need to be brave," she directed herself. The woman staring back nodded, a flicker of resolve lighting up her eyes. She couldn't merely convey her history, she needed to empower others to find strength in their own stories. After days of preparation, the meeting loomed closer. Parents would be expecting a polished presentation, but she knew her moments of uncertainty would ground her message. The willingness to be vulnerable could resonate, it could ignite a collective spirit not faced with division, but unity. The night before the presentation, Sarah lay awake, forcing herself to confront her fears. What if I'm not enough? Pressed against her mind like a weight, but she pushed back. Feeling the tremors of doubt, she recalled the resilient voices of her students, their raw honesty piercing through her anxieties. With a deep breath, she fully embraced her insecurities. This is the path of growth, she resolved. Her mission had transformed. It was no longer just about facilitating a project. It was about shifting the narrative into a space where vulnerability became synonymous with courage. As she closed her eyes, Sarah grasped the turning point of her journey. She knew this single moment could transform everything, not only for her but for her students and their families. It was time to step into her truth. The following day, standing at the edge of the stage with the spotlight awaiting her, a rush of trepidation welled inside. Would the honesty of her journey inspire others? Could she withstand the scrutiny of parents, and, worse still, her own self-doubt? Just then, an unexpected message lit up her phone screen, a reminder from a student. "You've got this, Ms. Johnson." The note brought warmth to her heart but also a sense of responsibility. Would she be able to deliver? The moment of truth had arrived sooner than she anticipated. As Sarah stepped onto the stage, the brightness of the spotlight swallowed her whole. The auditorium buzzed with whispers and shifting bodies, a symphony of expectation. She could feel the weight of the audience's eyes upon her, a collective stare that magnified every inflection of her nerves. Taking a steadying breath, she searched for a semblance of calm. The polished wooden floor felt alien beneath her feet, but she summoned the voices of her students. Their unwavering encouragement fueled her. "They're here for you," she reminded herself, the mantra echoing with each thump of her heart. Sarah took a moment to scan the audience, the parents she so desperately wished to connect with, and the smiling faces of her students beaming at her from the front row. She could see their hope, their belief in her. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice slightly trembling at first, then gaining strength as she continued. "Today, I want to share not just stories of my journey, but the journeys of my students." The opening words unlocked something within her, a torrent of honesty ready to flow. She spoke from the heart, weaving her personal narrative into the fabric of collective experience. Each anecdote she shared served as a thread connecting her history to the fears and aspirations of her students. There were moments of uncertainty in her past she hadn't polished over or hidden behind. She had stumbled through depression and emerged quietly stronger, a testament to the resilience she now aimed to instill in her students. As she detailed her struggles, the faces in the audience shifted from apprehension to rapt attention, entrusting her with their empathy. Then, she made an unexpected choice. "I want to tell you about a pivotal moment in my life. When I first faced the fear of speaking," she revealed, recalling her childhood experiences and the breathless anxiety of being unheard. Almost instinctively, she gestured towards a part of the room where her students sat, their eyes wide. "Let me ask you this: how many of us have felt this fear?" The response was immediate, hands shot up, and an electric energy buzzed through the air. She had opened a door, inviting them into the conversation, weaving their stories into hers. As she delved deeper, Sarah realized the mere act of sharing had ignited a hidden capability within her, a talent for facilitation, a gift of connecting. Her fears transformed into a platform for empowerment. Parents began to nod, occasionally exchanging glances as they recognized their own struggles mirrored in her narrative. This connection, fueled by authenticity and acceptance, began to blur the boundaries of the audience. As she neared the conclusion of her speech, contemplation seeped into her heart. Would they embrace this vulnerability, or would judgment haunt her efforts? With a tremble of resolve, she stood taller. "Vulnerability doesn't mean weakness," she asserted, her eyes scanning the sea of faces again, this time with unwavering conviction. "It means that we are brave enough to share our stories and to learn from each other." A wave of silence followed, only to be broken by the hesitant stirrings of applause. It felt tentative, as if the audience were unsure how to respond to such raw honesty. But as the claps grew, a sense of affirmation washed over her. Yet, in this newfound empowerment, an unsettling thought slipped in a shadow that crept silently. If this is what vulnerability could accomplish, then what else had she hidden from herself? As the applause cascaded, Sarah felt the stirrings of a deeper self-discovery lurking beneath the surface, a call for reflection on her authenticity. As she left the stage, still reeling from the sheer weight of the moment, an unsettling curiosity stirred, not just about what she shared, but what else lingered unspoken within her. What other truths lay dormant, unfaced, awaiting their own moment of revelation? The next chapter of her journey was beginning, but it would demand more than just the courage she had shown. Would she dare to confront the hidden layers of her own self? As Sarah stepped off stage, the adrenaline of the moment still coursed through her veins, but a quiet storm brewed within her mind. An intense exhilaration began to unravel, tearing away the layers of composure she had crafted over the years. She sank into a nearby chair, allowing herself to breathe deep, deliberate breaths. The applause still echoed in her ears, but in that rush of sound, a nagging question persisted: what truths remained buried beneath her bravado? The auditorium, once enveloped in the blinding glare of stage lights, faded into shadows. All around her, chairs scraped against polished floors as audiences dispersed, their murmured conversations layered with approval. Yet she remained, an island of stillness amidst the ebb and flow of people. It was introspection time. The waves of applause still curled around her, but now they felt like chains, binding her to her fears rather than liberating her from them. Why did I share only that? She whispered to herself, already overwhelmed by regret. Is that all I could muster? The thought stabbed at her, igniting guilt that twisted her stomach. She had shaped her message to fit a mold of acceptance, yet what she craved now was authenticity deepened by vulnerability. Her thoughts spiraled, weaving through past challenges, sleepless nights when her mind raced, battling against fears of inadequacy, the bitterness of feeling unseen. People had told her she was strong, capable, someone who could easily navigate the labyrinth of teaching. But each acknowledgement felt like a mask she wore upon her face, the real Sarah hidden behind polished gestures and practiced smiles. Strength is not just the absence of fear, she murmured, recalling the raw understanding she had so freely shared on stage. It's grappling with it, face to face. Yet, she faltered at the prospect of revealing more. Could she truly expose the fears that haunted her more than public speaking? The specters of self-doubt and insecurity that she had pushed to the background were persistently returning, clawing at her with relentless persistence. The reality of it all began to crystallize into determination. If she could face her audience with her scars, perhaps it was time to confront her inner demons in the light of day. There was power in vulnerability, a lesson she had imparted to students, yet she had refrained from truly integrating it into her own life. Determined, Sarah pulled out her notebook, the one that had been her confidant for years. Its pages were filled with half-articulated thoughts and untold stories. Shaky-handed, she penned a new entry, confronting the fears that had shadowed her for too long. To share is to connect, and to connect is to be alive, she wrote, a mantra to challenge her doubt. What do I avoid sharing? Her heart raced as she began to list what she felt were her greatest fears. The fear of failure, of disappointing her students, and eclipsing the person she aspired to be, crammed the page. Then a revelation struck her with profound clarity, a truth that glimmered like a beacon. Each fear she documented was a step toward unveiling her true self, a necessity in her professional evolution. This moment felt catalyst-driven. The seed of change was planted, and she could feel roots beginning to take hold, urging her to grow. Her empowerment was not just meant to inspire others but to transform her narrative. She dared to imagine the next time she stood in front of others, be it students or parents, equipped not only with her stories but with a newfound honesty that was unapologetically hers. Yet, as she folded the notebook closed, an uneasy feeling seeped back in. Would her authentic self truly be accepted? What if in peeling back the layers, she exposed cracks that were too deeply embedded? The apprehension loomed, each acknowledgement unlocking a door to a buried depth that terrified her. The journey was only beginning, her path diverging from the safe confines she had become accustomed to. She needed to engage in a deeper dialogue with herself, to confront the very essence of her being. The thought sent electrifying shivers down her spine. This was not the end, but it had become a crucial turning point. Soon, she would have to step into that arena once again, possibly revealing narratives still tangled in silence. Could she summon the courage to unveil the layers that defined her authenticity? As she slowly left the auditorium, a determined fire ignited within her, but the stakes had risen. The question hung in the air, pulsating with an urgency she could not ignore. Was she prepared to confront the strongest antagonist she would ever face? Herself. As Sarah walked through the dimly lit corridor, the heavy echo of her footsteps mirrored the weight of her introspections. Each step felt calculated, as if she were pacing through a tangible representation of the maze in her mind. The chatter from the departing audience was a distant hum, overshadowed by her internal dialogue. What had she really shared on that stage? For the first time in her career, she had stood there, an embodiment of confidence, and yet, the aftermath left her feeling fragmented. The applause had felt hollow, a mere backdrop to her silent scream for authenticity. How could she continually inspire others if she remained shackled by her own self-imposed limitations? Her mind darted back to her students, their hopeful faces, their eager questions. They didn't just deserve a teacher who was competent, they needed one who was real. In seeking to please them, had she inadvertently diluted the message? The realization tightened her throat. The moment for self-reflection was not merely a luxury, it was a necessity. Bracing herself, she resolved to delve deeper. The notebook she had penned her hesitations into became her anchor. She flipped to its last entry, her handwriting swirling in an expressive chaos, and began listing what truly mattered to her. Trust. Connection. Courage. Each word felt like a hammer striking against her silence. Trust in herself to be more than just a polished facade, connection with her students that transcended the typical teacher-student hierarchy, and courage to lay bare her vulnerabilities, not only to her audience but more importantly, to herself. This was the path of transformation, the courage to evolve, but then came the trepidation. Sarah had always internalized the idea that revealing her vulnerabilities might undermine her authority. What if, in her attempts to connect, she sowed doubt? The notion paralyzed her, rendering her resolve teetering on the brink of collapse. Yet if she became so immersed in her fears, how would she truly be able to help her students confront theirs? With renewed purpose, Sarah began drafting a new speech, one that delved into her very being. This wasn't a talk about teaching methods or education theories, it was a discourse about the nature of fear itself. She would embody the right mix of honesty and insight, shedding the layers of perfection she had built and exposing the raw, imperfect reality beneath. The thought of standing before an audience again stirred both eagerness and anxiety. Could she channel the transformative energy of vulnerability into that space once more? Each word she crafted became a cathartic release, liberating truth buried for far too long. As she wrote, the vision of her upcoming speech took shape, a framework of anecdotes interspersed with her own layers of self-reflection. Sarah felt a shift in her perspective. Rather than viewing vulnerability as a potential weakness, she began to see it as a bridge, as a means to access deeper connections, not just with her students, but with every individual who had ever faced self-doubt. The night grew darker around her, yet the clarity of purpose drove her fiercely on. Enlightenment flickered like candles within her, clarity emerged from the muddled shadows of doubt. This wasn't merely about public speaking anymore. It was about confronting her own narrative and reclaiming the power in her story. As the clock ticked toward the late hours, Sarah paused, a realization itching at the edges of her consciousness. How would she react when the moment finally arrived? When she stood on that stage, words blazing, laying bare everything she had ever concealed? The exhilaration of the thought was intoxicating. Determination coursed through her as she stood up, ready to face the uncertainty. She needed more than just courage, she had to foster resilience. It dawned on her that true transformation wouldn't just be external but an internal metamorphosis. There was work ahead to find strength in her flaws and roll them into her story. As she took one last glance at her handwritten words before shutting her notebook, a surge of excitement mixed with fear flooded her. The sheer unknown of the upcoming speech loomed ahead where her vulnerability would tip the balance. Would her students embrace her newfound self, or would the fear seep back in, creating fissures in her resolve? The answer awaited her, and she welcomed the impending challenge like an old friend. Soon, she'd step into the realm of her greatest confrontation yet, as an engaging journey into self-discovery awaited on the horizon. Was she willing to break free from her reserves and embrace whatever lay before her? The time was nearing when she would find out. As Sarah stood before her classroom for the final presentation, the world outside felt insignificant compared to the anticipation within her. After weeks of preparing, wrestling with her fears, and tapping into her vulnerability, she found herself now not just as a teacher, but a woman reclaiming her truth. The lessons learned from her own family's rich history pulsated in her veins, each story echoing with clarity and purpose. Today, she began, feeling the weight of the moment settle around her, I'm here to share not just history, but part of who I am. The words hung in the air, charged with sincerity. Glancing around the room, she saw the rapt faces of her students, their eager expressions mirrored the very anticipation she felt. No longer did she confront a hostile audience. Instead, she had allies, a circle of supportive young minds ready to unearth their narratives along with her. She launched into her story, unveiling layers of her past that had once felt insurmountable. As a child, I often felt invisible, just another face in the crowd. I liked to blend in, afraid of judgment. I would tell myself that vulnerability was weakness, she confessed, her voice trembling, then steadying with conviction. But today, I understand it differently. Vulnerability is what connects us. It is what allows me to stand here and share my history, my failures and triumphs. With each personal anecdote, Sarah painted a portrait of her fears, her struggles, and the formidable strength she discovered along the way. Stories of her ancestors became woven into her narrative, their triumphs mirroring her journey, fostering a deeper connection. The vulnerability she displayed became her strength. The audience absorbed every word, nodding, relating. She transformed the silence into dialogues not just about the past but about resilience and hope. In a moment of clarity, she invited her students to share. Instead of waiting for hands to shoot up, she posed open-ended questions. What does vulnerability mean to you? What stories have shaped who you are? The room erupted with voices, each student contributing to a mosaic of experiences and reflections. Their authenticity flowed freely, and with it, she felt her own resolutions crystallizing. As the session unfolded, Sarah recognized her own growth, the metamorphosis that had occurred in her heart and mind. The validating applause that erupted as she concluded her story felt different this time. It was not merely noise, it reverberated with acknowledgement, a recognition of shared journeys. Weeks later, Sarah stood in her favorite corner of the classroom, overlooking a group of students who thrived in their exploration of identity and history. She had implemented workshops where students delved into their family narratives. Attendance skyrocketed, spurred by curiosity and the empowering atmosphere she cultivated. Emails from parents poured in, praising the shift they witnessed in their children. They spoke of newfound confidence, eagerness to connect with family history, and pride in their ancestry. Sarah felt their gratitude settle in her heart with a warm embrace. She had forged pathways for her students to grow into themselves, stepping into their stories. Sarah had also received the school's Teacher of the Year award, a testament not only to her unconventional methods but to the impact she made on young lives. In that moment, she understood her own worth. It was not just recognition but a celebration of her journey, a testament to conquering her fears, embracing her vulnerability, and transforming them into instruments of connection. With her heart full and her mind steady, Sarah had found her voice, her purpose, and most importantly, she found herself. She learned to walk with courage, to invite uncertainty, and to cherish the power of sharing stories. As the school year drew to a close, she stood on the doorstep of new beginnings, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead with bold enthusiasm. This was her moment of achievement, the manifestation of years of resilience. The journey of reclaiming one's voice was often treacherous, yet Sarah emerged victorious, a testament to the depth of human experience and the true power of vulnerability. If you have been inspired by Sarah's transformative journey and want to witness more emotional stories of personal growth and triumph, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Your likes help us reach others in need of this inspiration. Leave a like now and comment your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear these empowering narratives.